question. Chris, I asked you before in channel comments, can you please make some videos about Tesla's voice recognition software? Can you find us some useful commands?
Sure. So I'll comment on this for a second. I don't want to take too long, but
Sure.
it goes back to what we talked about earlier in like making content. So number one, I personally don't use the voice commands all that often. I don't know if it's just the old man in me that's like not using the latest thing. But number two, I just personally don't feel like it would be the most popular video, although I like the idea of it because my channel started off as kind of like this educational, like, hey, here's how your Tesla works. Here's what to expect, blah, blah, blah. So from that perspective, I mean, I like the idea, but you just got to understand, like, work full time, the 2 kids, and then trying to do this stuff on the side. I don't have as much time these days as I used to just like sit down and create content like that. I love the idea, and it's in my, I have not seen your comment. So thank you for asking here. I will keep it in my brain, and if I can wrangle that together for you, I will do it, and I'll try to make it entertaining. So it's not just like, you can say open butthole and the charger opens. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'll try to make that entertaining if I can get to it.
You'd be like one of those like AI generated voices. Click here for this command.
Yeah, just
like that TikTok
text
voice.
to speech. Just do text to speech and throw it up there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I can sort of like also add on to what Chris is saying too, is like the content, it's the complexity of doing this is a lot more complex than it seems, because you would think, it's get in front of the camera, you have what you want to talk about, you do that stuff, that's definitely great, but then there's this whole thing, this whole beast that exists in the ether that is like, well, you just put in 40 hours into doing this, but if you don't do these 3 things perfectly, ain't nobody gonna see it. And then you're like, wow, I'm such a loser. So
yeah,
it's tough. It's
made
tough.
me feel
but,
bad.
yeah. But thank you for considering that, and thank you, Matt, for your question. That is awesome. Let's do this question here from Alex. How close are we to a free month FSD trial later this year or sometime in 2024? Where's your head at with this?
Yeah, I actually think we're getting kind of close to that. Again, if you're using beta, you're like, what the heck? It makes mistakes all the time. And I agree with that. But the types of mistakes, in my opinion, it's hard because I'm so used to beta, but the types of mistakes, there's like, for me, like no phantom braking anymore. It is so rare. Thank God. Cause in the early version 10s, it was like nonstop all the time. Just like these little breaks. Turns feel really good. It's again, like what beta can do, it does well when it does it well, if that makes sense. It still makes mistakes, but when it's driving well, it's like, damn, this thing feels like a person. So I actually think we are pretty close to this. Maybe it'll be like part of the holiday update or something.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. The humanness of it, Ross made this comment on the space that it feels, it's the most human it's ever felt, and I 100% agree there. The behavior, the comfort, it just for the majority of the time, let's say significantly more than 50%, it feels like a high quality, very mindful driver that's trying its best to be smooth. But then sometimes it's like, why is there a 5-year-old behind the wheel? It's like,
yep, I agree.
It's like that. It's like eruption, it's weird. Cool. Let's do this comment from Ethan. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, brother. Does the system work as well where Chris lives as we see Omar showing NSF? How often do you see his videos, and can you do a quick comparison?
Yeah, so it's definitely not as good as Omar's. He seems to have like perfect drives very often, or next to perfect drives. But I did say to him the other day, like, I felt like you lately because I've had so many good drives. And, it's funny because I have these couple bugs that I talk about where it always wants to drift into the opening lanes, or like we have these, I didn't realize this was weird, but in Michigan, if you have a 2-lane road, like each going one direction, if there's a place to turn left, like into a neighborhood or something, this little shoulder opens up with these dashed lines for you to pass that person that's turning left. I didn't realize that was unique, but a lot of people are seeing it like, what the heck is that thing? Beta screws that up all the time too. It wants to drive there, but it's not a place you drive unless somebody's in your way. So outside of those bugs I'm experiencing, my drives are often very good, with, the occasional hiccup here or there. So not as good as Omar, no, but I have some good drives.
Awesome. Let's do this next one here. This one might be controversial. Feel free not to answer, but it's from Not Legal Advice. He's
Bring it
a
on.
very close buddy of mine now, I guess. He comes on our forums often. Richard, do you agree it is more that Ross Gerber is not trustworthy to not act on his enhanced ego? That is the greater question. You don't have to answer this if you don't
Do
like,
you
but
agree it is more than Ross Gerber is not? He's not like basically has a big ego, so we shouldn't trust him.
I guess that's where he's getting at.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know the guy, so I mean that'd be super
Yeah.
rude of me to say. I don't know. Obviously, he's been very successful with Tesla stock and stuff. I think he had good intentions, but I think he just went about it the wrong way. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Thank you, Richard. Shout out Richard. Not Legal Advice. Check out his channel. Great content. Adam Martinez, question. How is Summon and other features of FSD these days? Haven't seen a video of this in a while. For me, Summon is unusable. How about for you?
Summon for me is not unusable. I would not call it that. I use it occasionally
Okay.
in the rain if it's raining, and it will get to me. It's just so slow that it's like not all that useful. And again, it goes back to you haven't seen a video of it in a while because like if I make a summon video, like nobody cares. It's hard because like there are videos like that I want to watch, but when I'm not like a full-time YouTuber or I don't have the time to like have flops that I don't have time to kind of have flops that often. I really have to kind of pick and choose what I'm going to spend my time on. So I like it. I still think it's cool, but yeah, I don't use it very often.
Awesome. Let's do a couple more here, and then we'll let Chris get on with his evening. Let's do this. Crunch the Grace Hopper. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. Man, y'all are being very generous today. Chris is going to be drinking a lot, y'all, when I see him. My goodness, the beer fund is getting large. Question. Does it seem that the FSD team applies, one, maximize separation, and two, minimize closing speeds as overarching safety, comfort, navigation, first principles? I'm not seeing it. How do you think about that equation?
Man, that's a complex question. So the team's main goal is that the car doesn't crash. So when we see things that we think are dumb or weird or annoying, they're probably not priorities. The priority is don't crash. That's like number one goal, which makes sense. But it can sometimes leave other things on the back burner for long amounts of time that you're like, what the heck? This should be simple. So maximize separation, you're talking about like when you change lanes and getting close to somebody, I'm assuming is what you mean by that. So no, it definitely doesn't seem to be a priority. But it does seem to be something that the car considers. And I mean, it's anecdotal evidence because I'm talking from my experience and I don't have exact clips to show you. Although these things I have shown in videos, but I don't have them like, ready to go. When making a lane change, well, let's start with making a turn. When you make a turn, like a right turn onto a road, if nobody's there, the acceleration is way more gradual, again, in my experience, than if someone's coming up on you. The car will kind of kick it into high gear. And I've actually had it one time where someone, I didn't really like the turn. I thought we cut them off just a little bit. They didn't honk at me or anything. But the car turned and it took off like harder than I've ever felt. And I was like, it's gotta be because there's somebody so close behind me. It has to be because I never have experienced that before. And then same thing, I'll go into lane changes with that. When you, especially highway lane changes, oh my gosh, are so amazing right now. When you make a lane change, if there's a small gap, the car will take it. And sometimes the gap is a little too small to be like, if traffic remains as it is, it's safe. But if the person in front of you is going to slam on their brakes, you may not have enough time to stop, even if you're like a supercomputer doing it quickly. So it will have a close gap there, but I've noticed that it always seems to open it back up for the most part. So I think it's in there. Maybe it's not perfect yet. But yeah, in my opinion, I mean, I think those things are definitely implemented. I hope I answered that the way you were hoping.
Yeah, I think that was a phenomenal answer. I tend to agree with you. I think it's definitely part of the equation. It like depends where and how it's applied. Maybe it's like a default mode, maybe where this kicks in. But there are situations on the road where this, like if you do this, like for example, if you do this in New York, you'll just be at a standstill. You're not going anywhere in New York City, right? So I think it's dependent on what the situation is. But that's a great question, Crunch. Thank you so much for sending that over. A couple more quick ones and then a fun one here, Chris, and then we'll let you go, my friend.
Sure.
Another Chris. Do you think more cameras are needed?
I do, honestly. Well, it's such a hard question to answer. I think we would greatly benefit from some bumper cameras. So one of my main complaints I will give that I don't think is easily solvable with the setup we have right now, and I could be wrong, is high speed cross traffic. And when you're in a downtown scenario like Cruise or Waymo, those things are not that important because cross traffic is not very high speed. It doesn't matter. If a car's coming at you with 30 miles per hour, the Tesla has plenty of range in its view to kind of calculate that correctly. When you have cross traffic at like 50, 60 miles an hour, from what I've experienced, I don't believe the car has enough like time from when it first sees it to making the decision to turn. And it doesn't accelerate hard enough almost always. So I really feel if we had higher resolution cameras, number one, which we do have in hardware 4, and number two, if we could get some side facing bumper cameras, at this point, I give up. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think higher resolution, number one, would benefit. And I do believe side facing, even rear cameras would be good for, I don't think that's that important, but yeah, side facing front cameras, I think would help a lot. But at the same time, Tesla didn't, throw some cameras on and say, cool. They obviously have a reason for the setup they have.
Yeah, I do wonder. I often wonder because I've seen this happen before where the car, and this is probably more a UI thing, but the car reacts to things that are not showing on the screen that are far away. Have you had that happen to you as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I wonder how much of that is like maybe just a resolution will solve that instead of placement, because maybe even if it's like I don't know, 2 degrees of the camera, I can see that object moving or something. It could like, interpret that and put it, I don't know, I'm not an expert to this stuff but it is interesting that they're so sold on this setup and they've been using it for so long. And even with hardware 4, it doesn't look like we're going to get any sort of change to the setup of the cameras whatsoever. It's just going to be stuck where it's at. So
I think we're getting a front bumper camera.
the bumper, like the Cybertruck one. I think the Cybertruck's got that one in the front.
Yeah, I think we're going to get that on all the cars. But yeah, beyond that,
it's just the one though, right? Like
yep.
front
and
facing.
it's yeah, exactly. It's front facing. It's not even side facing. So
Yeah, I wonder if it's like 180 degrees. Do you think maybe that would help?
it could be, but on the edges of those, wide angle cameras, it's not. I mean, I'm not a software expert, but from my experience, it's not that usable of footage when you get to the very edge of those cameras anyway. So that's just my guess. I don't think it's going to be that useful for that. That it could be, I mean, what if do they make like, 200-degree cameras and then the edges aren't needed, but that 180 spot is looking good still? That could be good.
Good question. Good question, Chris. Thank you so much. All right, let's do a couple quick ones here. This one's interesting because I've never had to do this for any other Teslas I owned. Actually, really, I haven't really had to do anything outside of a couple trim changes because of rattling. And there was one a handle on a front door, on the front passenger door in one of my Model S's that I owned back in the day. Question: have you had your front suspension arms replaced? I had both of mine replaced under warranty twice. I have the 10th generation version. Did you have this issue? Have you experienced this with yours?
No, I had a Model 3 that I got to 50,000 miles, and I had the splines fixed. I don't know what those are, but they're part of the wheel, and they were making like a clicking noise. So I had those fixed. I guess it probably would have come back. There's not much you can do with those. And then my Model Y is at 40,000 miles, and I haven't had those replaced. No.
Okay. In the comment section, if anybody has, let Max know. It'd be good data for Max to have. But yeah, unfortunate that you went through that, and hopefully everything's good now. All right, last question. We'll make it a fun one. Matt really wants to get this question in. I was looking at your tweets, Chris. Can you guys please talk about this elephant in the room, the Elon Zuck Lex GSP drama? Thanks, do it. Haha. Please, guys.
Guys. Who's GSP?
Sorry, George St. Pierre. So he's like he's a OG UFC guy, like big time. Yeah. So he said he's going to coach Elon, and then Lex said he's going to coach Zuck. I guess one of those two things. Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, go for it. What do I care? I mean, I hope they don't get like seriously injured, but I think it'd be hilarious. Like, at the end of the day, like we're all humans. Of course, like Zuckerberg and Musk are highly accomplished and they're super rich and like, very smart or whatever you want to say, but they're still humans. So if they want to fight, like go for it. That sounds sweet. I mean, I would watch it.
Yeah.
And dude, think of how much money they would raise for charity. Like
Oh,
a
it would be
lot,
incredible.
a lot of money. So yeah, who cares? Yeah, I saw that from Lex.
Do you
That's
see this
awesome.
one?
Did you see the
So
memes
here,
already on that one?
yeah, dude,
Oh my God,
it's awesome.
so
I
good.
replied, I said, the walrus looks deadly.
That's smart. That was a good reply. That's a good reply.
Look at the walrus right there. Look at
He's
him.
right
Oh
on
my
top of
God.
him.
You can see his veins. He's like really putting an effort. Dude, he looks angry.
He looks
That wrist
mad.
control is legit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I agree with you. I think if it does happen, it will be great for charity. But I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to make this prediction live for the first time. This ain't happening. I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, I think, I mean, unless there's like, we wait a year and Musk does a lot of training, I think he might get his butt kicked, but he's also way bigger than Zuckerberg is. So, you know,
big.
that matters. I mean, even if you're untrained, like that matters a lot.
Yeah.